It was a day like any other. Dinner was cooking. I was standing in front of the stove, stirring sauce, and glancing over at the living room where my husband and kids were playing. Our toddler was laughing loudly, sprinting in circles around the coffee table. Our baby sat propped up with a few pillows, cooing as my husband bounced a stuffed animal over her head. Everyone was smiling. For a rare moment, the house felt light, warm, safe. And in my head, I thought, maybe today will be a good day. It lasted maybe 20 minutes. That's all it took for peace to shatter. The trigger. Our toddler, wild and curious as ever, picked up a small plastic cup and hurled it toward the couch. Not out of anger, just toddler chaos. It was one of those thin, hollow cups that barely weighs a thing. But somehow, it landed wrong. It smacked my husband right in the eye. In a split second, everything changed. His body tensed. His jaw clenched. And then it exploded. He stood up fast, like something had possessed him. His face went red. His voice thundered. He began yelling at our toddler, shouting words too fast, too sharp, too loud. Our toddler, this sweet little human barely 3 years old, froze. Then collapsed to the ground in a heap. No tantrum. No screams. Just collapse. His entire body folded inward, like he was trying to make himself small. Invisible. I heard the words, but more than that, I heard the tone. It wasn't discipline. It was fury. Instinct, protection. My body didn't even think. It moved. I walked quickly into the living room and said, firmly but without yelling, "Stop yelling at him." I was trying to interrupt. To de-escalate. To break the wave before it could crash harder. But the wave redirected, toward me. Rage turned inward. My husband turned his full anger on me. Now I was the problem. The barrier. The enemy. You never let me discipline him. He's never going to learn if we just coddle him. You always undermine me. I don't have any other way to discipline besides yelling. I stood frozen. Inside, my heart was pounding. My skin felt electric, my throat dry. I was still cooking, dinner wasn't done, but the kitchen and living room blurred together in a haze of heat and panic. Then, my mouth opened. And I said something I half regret, half stand by. Refusing to learn any other way to discipline is lazy. He stopped. Not because he agreed. But because that word cut him. I could tell. Maybe I shouldn't have said it. But I also needed him to stop. The collapse. He left the room. The yelling stopped. But the quiet that followed was deafening. I turned off the stove. My hands were shaking too much to cook. Our toddler crawled over to a corner, clutching his favorite blanket. I walked over to him, knelt down, and held him. He didn't cry. He just laid his head against my shoulder and said nothing. That scared me more than tears. The half apology. Later, as I stood silently washing a pot in the kitchen, he walked by and muttered, "Sorry I blew up at you earlier. I shouldn't have done that." No eye contact. No pause. Just dropped it and kept walking. And I couldn't say anything back. Not because I didn't want to. But because I didn't feel safe enough to speak. I was still on edge, unsure if the next words I said would start another fire. So I kept washing. My hands raw from the heat of the water, my chest tight. The moment that broke me. Then, from the hallway, I heard tiny footsteps. Our toddler walked up to me. He looked up at me with those big, serious eyes and said, "It's okay, Mama." And in that moment, I broke. Because he shouldn't be comforting me. He shouldn't even know that I need comfort. He shouldn't be the one trying to regulate the emotions in our home. He's a child. He should be the one protected. Then he turned and walked toward his dad. Climbed onto the couch beside him. And said, "I love you, Daddy." The same man who had just terrified him. And I realized in that moment, our toddler was trying to make everything okay again. He was trying to hold us together. Like it was his job. And that crushed me. Closing reflections, episode 1 ending. I went to my room that night, locked the door, and sat on the edge of the bed in silence. My thoughts raced. Is this going to be my life? Is this going to be his childhood? Am I overreacting? Am I the only one holding all of this together? This wasn't the first time something like this had happened. And I was starting to worry, deep down, that it wouldn't be the last. I didn't know what to do yet. But I knew this couldn't keep happening. This was the moment I realized something had to change. Not just for me. But for him. For them. For the kind of home I promised I would create. A safe one. After the explosion, things went quiet. Not peaceful, just quiet. The kind of quiet that follows a storm. Not because the storm is over, but because it's reloading. The next morning, we moved through the motions. Breakfast, teeth brushing, diaper changes, dishes. No mention of the night before. No real conversation. Just silent choreography, like two people acting out the roles of husband and wife without believing the script. And I felt it, again. That heaviness. That caution in my every step. That constant scanning of his face, his tone, his posture. As if I could control the next explosion if I just stayed ahead of it. That's when I realized something that hurt more than the yelling. I had been walking on eggshells for a long time. And I was starting to lose track of when that became normal. The invisible job I carry. No one sees it, but there's a job I do every single day. Keeping the emotional peace. I manage the kids' needs, the meals, the schedules. I soothe tantrums, wash sticky hands, calm nightmares. But there's another task, one I never signed up for. Managing his moods. I tread lightly when he's in a bad mood. I offer more affection when he seems withdrawn. I over-explain things to prevent a flare-up. I clean more. I speak less. I overfunction, hoping he'll underreact. All week I had been trying harder. More patience. More attention. More thank yous. I thought, maybe if I do just a little more, it'll ease something in him. But it didn't. It's never enough. That's the hardest part. It never feels like enough. I could put on a smile all day, stay upbeat, keep the house perfect, take care of the kids without complaint, but the moment something small goes wrong? Boom. It's like it erases all the effort. One cup hits the wrong place. One toddler tantrum. One perceived interruption. And all my work at keeping the peace disappears, like it was never even noticed. It's like I'm expected to be a buffer. To absorb. To adjust. And he gets to explode. He gets to let it all out and then move on. The tension that lives here. Here's what living like this feels like. You can never fully exhale. Your nervous system is always just a little bit braced. Not always fear. Not always danger. But always tension. And when it's calm, you don't even feel relaxed. You feel suspicious. Waiting for the other shoe to drop. You don't sit on the couch and enjoy your coffee, you monitor. You don't play with your kids fully, you're listening. You don't sleep deeply, you dream about defending your child. You become the emotional thermostat for everyone. And eventually, you forget you have a temperature of your own. When you're the glue. People talk about being the glue in the family like it's a badge of honor. But here's the truth no one says. Being the glue hurts. Because when you're the glue, it means you're always patching. You're always stretching to hold things together that are constantly pulling apart. And if you ever stop holding, everything shatters. That's the burden. That's the pressure. And lately, it feels like I'm holding this family together with my bare hands. Bleeding a little more every time I grip tighter. Why I don't leave, yet. I know some people would ask, why are you still there? And I get it. But here's the complicated part. He's not always like that. There are days when he plays gently with the kids. When he kisses me on the forehead. When he brings me coffee without asking. When he apologizes. He is good in him. I see it. I married it. I've built a family with it. But sometimes, the good doesn't outweigh the damage it covers up. Sometimes, the fear of the next explosion drowns out the memory of the last apology. And I stay because I hope. Because I believe in change. Because we've talked about therapy. About better parenting. About growth. But the talking never becomes doing. And I keep waiting. And holding. The loneliness of overfunctioning. There's a specific loneliness in carrying the emotional weight of a home. It's not just being physically tired, it's the silence of no one asking. How are you, really? Are you okay? Do you feel safe? It's smiling at friends when they say, "You guys are such a sweet family." And thinking, if only you saw what I saw last night. It's crying in the shower and wiping your face quickly when you hear little footsteps down the hall. It's parenting both your child and your partner. It's holding your own fear with one arm and your toddler with the other. The inner conflict. Here's what's so confusing. I don't want to paint him as a villain. I don't think he wants to hurt anyone. But intent doesn't erase impact. And love without safety isn't enough. I can't protect my children from trauma by pretending ours doesn't exist. And I can't keep absorbing rage just because I'm strong. Strength isn't about staying. It's about knowing when staying starts breaking you. Little moments that open my eyes. It's the little moments that wake me up. Like when our toddler flinches at a raised voice, not even his dad's. Just any voice. Or when he tries to calm down the baby before she cries. Like he already believes it's his job to keep everyone regulated. Or when he says I'm sorry for things that aren't his fault. It breaks me. Because I've read the studies. I've seen the generational patterns. And I refuse to pass this down. What I need, setting the stage for change. I don't know exactly what comes next. But I know what I need. I need this house to feel safe again. I need parenting that doesn't rely on fear. I need accountability, not defensiveness. I need to stop walking on eggshells in my own home. I need my child to never think that love equals chaos. And I need help. From him. From a therapist. From myself. Because I cannot keep holding all of this alone. And I won't. Not anymore. That night, after everything had settled, after the yelling, the silence, the awkward dinner, he came into our bedroom. He sat on the edge of the bed quietly. For a moment, he didn't say anything. He didn't touch his phone. He didn't sigh loudly. He didn't pace like he sometimes does when he's building up to an argument. And then, with his head down, he said, "I'm really sorry for how I acted earlier." He paused. "I shouldn't have yelled at him. Or at you. I know you were just trying to help. I lost control. And I'm sorry. I don't want to be that kind of dad. Or that kind of husband." I looked at him. I heard the sincerity. And for a split second, I felt relief. But it didn't last. Because the moment he said, "I'll try not to do it again," something inside me whispered, "What if you do? When sorry isn't enough?" I've heard apologies before. And I don't mean that with bitterness. I mean it with exhaustion. He always says the right things after the wrong things have already been done. And yes, acknowledging what he did matters. Yes, owning it is the first step. But my body doesn't forget. My chest still tightens when his voice raises. My hands still tremble remembering our toddler curled into the corner of the room. My mind still replays the silence that followed, where I wasn't sure what version of him would show up next. So when he says I'm sorry, I want to say, "Thank you, but what happens next?" Because "I'll try not to" is not a plan. "I'll try not to" doesn't change the way my nervous system reacts. "I'll try not to" doesn't teach our son what safe love looks like. "I'll try not to" isn't something I can trust yet. Hope versus fear. I want to believe him. Truly. Because I love him. Because I've seen his gentle side. Because I know he wants to be better. But I'm scared. Scared that this will happen again. That we'll fall back into the cycle. That I'll keep holding the tension, the fear, the responsibility. That our kids will normalize it. That I already have. There's a war inside me, hope on one side, fear on the other. And I don't know who's winning. The damage we can't see. What makes this harder is the kind of damage no one talks about. When someone raises their voice, we focus on the volume. But it's not just the loudness, it's the unpredictability. It's the loss of control. The surge of intensity. The way the room changes in an instant. It's watching your child go from joyful to frozen. It's feeling your own instincts pull you in two directions, protect your child or de-escalate your partner. It's knowing your kid isn't going to remember every detail, but they'll remember the feeling. That sudden wave of not being safe in their own home. That's what lingers. That's the wound. The mental load of anticipation. Since that day, I've been watching more carefully. His moods. His responses. His stress levels. I try to assess, like a living mood barometer. If he's tired, I stay quieter. If he's frustrated, I shield the kids. If he's distracted, I don't ask for help. And every time I do this, I feel a little more invisible. Like I'm shrinking myself to keep the room manageable. And I hate it. Because I used to be louder. More playful. More spontaneous. But now, I plan my words before I speak. I plan my silence too. And that's not who I want to be. Not for me. Not for my kids. Our toddler's reaction. The next morning, our toddler came into the kitchen while I was making breakfast. He wrapped his arms around my legs and whispered, "Are you happy today, Mama?" It hit me like a truck. He wasn't asking about the weather. He wasn't asking about the food. He was checking the emotional temperature of the house. Like a little emotional caretaker. He's 2.5. He shouldn't be carrying that. And I realized. My fear isn't irrational. My fear is protective. Because something did change in our son after that moment. Something in his emotional world shifted. And that's what terrifies me. What I need to hear. When he says, "I'm sorry, here's what I wish would follow." I want to learn how to do better. I've scheduled a counseling session. I know yelling isn't okay, and I'm committed to finding new tools. I won't ask you to carry this alone. You shouldn't have to hold everything together. Let's build a plan, together. Because I'm sorry is a start. But it's not a strategy. I need action, not just regret. Building safety. Safety isn't just about physical harm. It's about emotional predictability. Knowing that your feelings won't be dismissed. That you won't be blamed for someone else's reactions. That when something goes wrong, no one yells, you solve it together. That's what I want in this home. That's what I need my kids to see. And honestly, that's what I need to believe in again. My own inner healing. In all this, I've realized something uncomfortable. I've been so focused on protecting the kids, de-escalating him, holding the house together, that I forgot to check in on myself. I've been swallowing fear. Pushing away exhaustion. Minimizing my needs. I've been so used to making excuses for him, I started making them for myself. But I'm allowed to say, I'm not okay. And that doesn't mean I'm weak. It means I'm awake. It means I want something better, for all of us. What's next? So where does this leave me? Honestly, I'm still figuring that out. But I know this. I will not pretend this didn't happen. I will not accept sorry without change. I will not be the only one doing the emotional work. I will protect my children's right to feel safe. I will trust my body when it tells me something is wrong. And I will speak up. Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it risks conflict. Because silence protects the wrong things. Closing, for others watching. If you've ever been in this space, this limbo between apology and fear, I see you. If you've ever been told you're too sensitive, too dramatic, too emotional, I believe you. You are not overreacting. Your nervous system isn't lying. Your intuition isn't wrong. You want peace. Not perfection. Just peace. And you deserve to have it. He came up to me quietly. Our toddler. Still in his pajamas, holding his little blue blanket. After everything that happened, the yelling, the fear, the apology, he looked up at me with his soft eyes and said, "It's okay, Mama." Then he patted my leg. And in that moment, I realized. My son thought it was his job to comfort me. This shouldn't be his job. He's 2.5. He still says aminals instead of animals. He still wears shoes on the wrong feet. He still needs me to cut his food and wash behind his ears. But somehow, he's also trying to read the room. To monitor emotions. To manage the atmosphere. To make sure everyone's okay, because if they're not, he's not either. That's not something he learned from cartoons. That's something he learned from us. And that truth hit me like a truck. The day after, the emotional fallout. The next morning, the house was quiet. My husband had apologized, yes. Sincerely. Repeatedly. But the air still felt off. Like after a fire. The flames are gone, but the heat remains in the walls. I was making breakfast, and our toddler came in. He didn't shout his usual good morning. He walked slowly. Studied my face. And then he asked, "Are you happy, Mama?" That's not a question a toddler should have to ask. That's not curiosity. That's anxiety. Children feel everything. The thing people often forget is, kids may not understand everything. But they feel everything. They may not grasp the words being shouted. But they know when love feels sharp instead of warm. They see the shift in your shoulders. They hear the change in your tone. They feel the emotional weather in the room, and they adapt to it. And our toddler. He's been adapting. That day, he played softer. Quieter. He checked in more. Offered more hugs. And every time someone raised their voice, even slightly, he flinched. He's trying to be the glue. Just like I've been. Parentification, the word that broke my heart. There's a word I didn't want to learn. Parentification. It's when a child starts taking on emotional or physical responsibilities meant for an adult. They become caregivers. Mediators. Emotional translators. It doesn't always look like obvious abuse. Sometimes, it looks like a 3-year-old patting his mom's back and saying, "Don't cry, Mama." Or asking, "Are you mad, Daddy?" before doing anything new. Or giving hugs too often, not because they're affectionate, but because they're anxious. I've started noticing it everywhere. The ways he tries to fix us. When we're tense, he becomes silly, trying to make us laugh. When I look tired, he brings me his favorite toy. When my husband's voice sharpens, our toddler's shoulders shrink. He's constantly scanning. He knows when the house is safe and when it's fragile. That's not developmentally normal. That's survival. And the scariest part is, it's invisible from the outside. No bruises. No crying fits. Just a well-behaved toddler who loves to comfort people. But I see what's happening. And it hurts. The guilt I carry. I've always said I'd protect my kids. From the world. From harm. From trauma. But I didn't realize I'd need to protect them from our home. And that guilt, it's heavy. Because I'm trying. So hard. I'm intervening. I'm calming storms. I'm softening edges. But sometimes, it's not enough. Because the damage isn't always direct. Sometimes, it's the collateral of living in a house where tension lingers like smoke. I've started asking myself daily. Is he okay? Is he learning that love is safe? Am I doing enough to unteach what he's starting to internalize? The cost of over-adapting. Kids who adapt too soon pay a price later. They become teenagers who don't know how to ask for help. Adults who overfunction in relationships. People who confuse calmness with love, even when that calm is silence, withdrawal, or repression. I don't want that for him. I don't want him to grow up thinking he needs to fix other people's moods to be loved. I don't want him to believe that being good means being quiet. I don't want him to carry what I carried. My promise to him. So I've made a promise. To him. And to myself. I will not accept any version of parenting or partnering that teaches him fear. I will not normalize explosive behavior and call it just frustration. I will not expect him to manage emotions that aren't his to carry. And I will fight for a home that feels emotionally consistent. Not perfect. Just safe. To my husband, if you're watching. If you're watching this. Know that I love you. I see the good in you. But I will not allow our child to be emotionally injured by the parts of you that you refuse to heal. If you want to change, I will walk beside you. But if you won't, I'll walk without you. Because he needs safety more than we need comfort. And I won't let history repeat itself. To other parents watching. If you've seen your child shrink after a raised voice. If you've seen them smile to keep the peace. If they hug too often. Apologize too quickly. Or ask, "Are you okay?" when they're the ones who need comfort. Please pay attention. These kids aren't just kind or mature. They're surviving something they can't name yet. And you can stop it. You can break the cycle. But only if you see it. And only if you act. The end of innocence, and the chance to restore it. Childhood should be full of exploration, silliness, mess, mistakes. Not emotional landmines. Not monitoring moods. Not keeping everyone okay. Our toddler is not the glue. He's the light. And I won't let that light dim just because the adults around him can't figure out how to hold their own shadows. He deserves better. So do I. So do you. I stood at the kitchen sink after putting the kids to bed. The house was silent. No cartoons playing. No toys clattering across the floor. No crying. No yelling. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the clinking of a plate in my hand. And for the first time in days, I let myself feel it fully. I don't feel safe here. Not because I fear for my life. But because I fear for my peace. For my children's sense of security. For the slow erosion of emotional safety that no one else seems to notice. That night, I made a decision. It was time to draw a line. Not out of anger. But out of love, for myself, for my kids, and even for the version of him that he still has the power to become. Why the line was necessary. For too long, I've been hoping things would just get better. That if I loved harder, worked more, softened further, he would meet me halfway. But now I understand. Hope is not a plan. Love is not a substitute for change. Patience is not a license for harm. And I can no longer leave the future of my children's emotional health in someone else's hands. I've spent too many nights wondering. Is this just a rough patch? What if he's just stressed? Am I being too sensitive? But now I ask. What is the cost of waiting for things to get better, if they never do? What is my silence teaching my kids? What does my tolerance say about their worth? That's why this line matters. Because if I don't protect them now, when will I? The conversation we finally had. The next morning, I waited until the kids were down for their nap. Then I asked him to sit down. No yelling. No tears. No defensiveness. Just clarity. I told him. I need you to listen. Fully. Not to respond. Not to debate. But to hear. I told him how scared I felt when he yelled. How our toddler shrank and started trying to comfort me. How that broke something in me. I told him that apologies are important, but not enough. And then I told him this. This can never happen again. If it does, I will take steps to protect myself and our kids, even if that means creating space between us. His face changed. He looked hurt. Then confused. Then quiet. But he didn't argue. He asked me, "What do you want me to do?" And I said, "I want you to start therapy. Anger management. Parenting education. Something. Anything. I need to see action, not just emotion. I need a partner, not another person I have to manage." His reaction, the first sign of change? To my surprise, he didn't push back. He nodded slowly. And then he said something I didn't expect. "I know I need help. I don't want to be the reason our kids feel unsafe." I didn't know how much I was damaging things. He looked genuinely shaken. He promised to schedule an appointment with a therapist. He said he'd start reading the books I've been begging him to read. And I told him, this is not about punishment. It's about protection. For all of us. Boundaries are love in action. Some people think setting boundaries is mean. That it's cold. Harsh. Punitive. But boundaries aren't walls. They're doors with locks. They allow relationship. But not at any cost. They say, "Yes, I love you. But I will not accept harm as the price of that love." And I've realized something that took me years to learn. You can love someone and still walk away if they refuse to grow. You can be compassionate and still say no more. You can forgive someone's past and still demand better in the future. What I'm fighting for. This isn't just about fixing our marriage. This is about saving our children's innocence. Preserving their right to feel safe in their own home. Teaching them that love is soft, not sharp. That home is refuge, not risk. I want them to grow up knowing they don't have to manage other people's emotions. They don't have to silence themselves to stay safe. They can say no. They can walk away. Their feelings matter. And they are never too much. And for that to happen, I have to live it myself. What if he doesn't change? I've asked myself this question a lot. What if he goes to therapy for a few weeks, and then stops? What if the cycle repeats? What if he hears everything, and still doesn't shift? Then I will know that I did my part. That I tried. Truly. Honestly. Gently. Firmly. And if nothing changes, I will leave. Or I will ask him to. Not out of cruelty. But because I won't sacrifice my children's well-being on the altar of keeping the family together. This isn't the end, it's a beginning. Drawing the line isn't the end of our story. It's the beginning of a new chapter. One where healing is possible, but not guaranteed. One where accountability becomes love in action. One where I no longer wait for someone else to fix it. Because now, I know my worth. And I know theirs. I will protect it. I will nurture it. I will model what respect looks like. What repair looks like. What real love looks like. To anyone who's still holding it all together. If you're still holding it all together by yourself, I see you. If you're still hoping the apology means more than it used to, I hear you. And if you've been told that your expectations are too much, let me tell you, they're not. You're allowed to want safety. You're allowed to need peace. You're allowed to say, "This ends with me." Even if you shake. Even if you cry. Even if your voice cracks while you say it. You're allowed to draw the line. And you're allowed to live free on the other side of it.